Sandra Garlick MBE is a speaker, mentor, and visibility strategist whose journey in business has been far from linear. After her divorce with two young boys to support and no clear plan, she retrained as a solicitor, built her own law firm, and spent 25 years speaking professionally whilst running a business. From the outside, it looked like Sandra had it all, but life doesn't always follow the version you planned. In 2016, a slip in the snow and a serious ankle break later forced everything to stop. And in that pause, something became clear. The passion she once had for law had gone. And she said, if you wake up one morning and no longer love what you do, you have the power within you to change it. So she did, creating the accidental brand, The Woman Who. What stands out about Sandra is not just what she's built since, but how she has the ability to adapt when something no longer fits. Since that pivotal moment in 2016, she spent a decade championing women through the Women Who Awards, created platforms like the Let's Get Visible Academy, and hosted more than 200 episodes of her Mic Drop Moments podcast. Not unsurprisingly, in 2020, Sandra was awarded an MBE for services to women in business, recognizing her work in championing leadership and visibility. Alongside living her purpose every day, Sandra enjoys traveling to Italy, spending time at football with her grandsons and sons, and walking her dog. But there is a deeper layer to all of this. Sandra also lives with partial deafness. As she says, visibility isn't a buzzword for me. It's real and it's personal. My mission is to help others raise their voice and own their space on stage, online, and in business. Sandra, welcome to Stories That Sell.
What an amazing introduction. Wow, I'd love a copy of that.
I'll send it to you. Honestly, when I was doing the research for this podcast episode, there are so many things I could talk to you about, but we only have half an hour, so we might have to do a part two at some point. But actually, I'm going to go into something completely different to start with, because I want to talk to you about one of my passions, which is music. Because last year you set the challenge to learn to sing, and this year you've gone for the piano. What is drawing you to the world of music?
When I was a child, I learnt to play all the instruments, but was a master of none. So, as every child did, started out with a recorder, but I went one step further. I went for the treble and the tenor recorders, and I was just one of those few that progressed. Then it was the guitar, then it was the violin, then it was the clarinet, and then the piano. And at some point at secondary school, it was no longer cool to play music, and we didn't have the right music teacher, I think, at the time. And so it all disappeared, along with my mother telling me that I couldn't sing. She basically didn't say that. She said, that sounds awful. I wouldn't sing like that anywhere. I think she meant the music, not my voice. And I was selected at primary school to be in the Coventry School Choir. So I was only one of four children representing our school. So I must have been able to sing. But yeah, so I just pushed it all aside. And then last year, I met a lady who said everyone can sing, but they just need the right tuition. And I went and had a sample, and I'm pitch perfect apparently, which I was shocked at, being partially deaf.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, that's I really wish I was pitch perfect. I hate that I'm not. What was it like? Because you did your first performance on stage singing last year. What was that like? Because you train people to be on stage, but what was it like singing on stage?
Completely different. So I experienced all the fears that all my clients have when they come to me. And so I got to experience that firsthand, the shaky voice, the shaking hands, the gut that just wanted to, heave at the time. I was genuinely nervous and faltered, especially when I saw people in the audience that I knew and knew me for business, but not yet, singing. So it was a really raw first performance, and it was vulnerable. And people said it was vulnerable. It was lovely to see, but yeah, it gave me that scary sensation. And what I realized in that moment was, when you stand up and speak, nobody knows what you're going to say. It doesn't matter what pitch and tone you have, and you don't have to remember it. Not everybody knows it. When you sing, it's got to be pitch perfect. Most people will know the tune and what notes you're supposed to hit, and they all know the words, or some of them. So you've got to get that right. So there's more pressure to sing, I think, than there is to speak. So that was my learning.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Do you ever get nervous when you speak? Or have you
I
ever got nervous?
It's good to have a few nerves because that shows you care about what your audience, because I say when you speak, it's always for the audience, never for yourself. You always want the audience to take something from it. So there's that anticipation, that little bit of anxiety, and that's good. And I have a pre-speaker routine. Now I need a pre-singing routine.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Interestingly, I suffered with nerves. Even though I've been a performer all my life, nerves was the biggest nemesis of mine. I would be absolutely, I love performing and I'll be terrified of it at the same time. And it's interesting that we're talking about how the nerves have affected you because you do need that pre-routine. And even sometimes that pre-routine can go out the window, even after all my years of experience of playing. Like literally, even there are some moments where I go, oh my gosh, I can't play this. And that fear comes over you. And then something happens inside your body that you can't control. But you learn how to adjust, don't you, with the nerves and how you can actually work with them rather than let it take over you, don't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, my pre-speaking routine is I visit the loo, I come back, and I give myself a talking to in the toilet mirror, and I say, "You've got this, Sandra." So that's my little pep talk, and then I come back into the room, squirt of perfume, lippy on, I'm ready. Singing's different. So that was a bit of breathing. It was a bit of sitting there, just contemplating, deep breathing, relaxing, and making sure that I wasn't in a state that was like, because if nothing comes out, and it shouldn't come from here when you sing, it has to come from down here. So we've been taught lots of techniques and tools to use. And I think when you're speaking, it's the same. You just need to learn the tools and techniques to get over those nerves.
Out of interest, what is your perfume of choice for speaking?
It's the same. I always wear Chanel Mademoiselle, and
Oh,
just one squirt of that, I just get this. Even when I'm coming on a Zoom or doing a Zoom training, it's squirt of that, lippy at hand, and then off we go.
amazing. I love that. I was actually having a conversation about perfumes at the big festoon because I help out with speakers behind the scenes. And we're having a conversation of what perfume do you wear on stage? Because it's that smell that kind of puts you in that right mindset, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So piano, how is that compared to singing?
Well, I've not purchased the piano yet, so I've done a lot of research. I want it to match my room for one, but it's got to be the right piano. So I'm looking for one with weighted keys. There's an awful lot on the market now because I want an electric piano and I want one with weighted keys that feels like a natural piano. So I think I've found the piano. I've I'm learn the first step for me is learning to read sheet music. And I used to be able to read music really well. And I remember at school we had those little books with the lines on, and I learned how to write notes. And I'm doing that first because I think there's no point learning the piano if I'm not learning from sheet music. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, learning my keys again, learning sheet music, learn what it means, and singing from sheet music, not just words. So that's the next stage, and then the piano will come very shortly. So
Oh,
yeah,
I love that. Is there a piece you're looking forward to playing on the piano? Is there something in your mind? Because when I remember the first instrument apart from the recorder, I don't really count that as my first instrument. I had a piano in the house, but my first proper instrument was flute. And there was one piece that I always wanted to play, and that was the reason I started playing the flute. Do you have one for the piano?
I don't yet. I don't yet,
Ooh.
other than the chopsticks that I will obviously teach my grandkids. But no, it's I don't, and I'm just finding my feet with the music that I'm loving as well. So I Christmas, obviously, I was gravitated towards a song that my dad sang because my dad used to sing, and I sang White Christmas, which was meant a lot to me. And I'm sort of learnt some of my dad's songs. He learnt to sing a lot of Italian songs. So I'm just moving into Italian songs, and then I will go to opera.
Oh, I love it. I've just played an opera at the weekend, and Italians are the best, in my opinion, at operas. They bring it, which actually quite nicely segues on to our joint love of Italy. What is it about Italy that you particularly love? Because I know you've been going there every year for quite some time now.
So I'm half Italian. My grandparents were Italian immigrants. My mum is one of eight. She's the last surviving child of those eight. And it just became a passion. I wanted to trace my roots. So I went to Italy. and found the village where my granddad was born, the village where my grandma was born, the village church where they got married. And that started me off on an exploration of Italy. And I just keep going and I keep going back and I'm drawn to it. The only way I can describe it is I step off the plane and feel like I'm home,
Oh, lovely.
wherever I am in Italy. And I can't speak the language. My granddad banned it. He hung a Union Jack outside of the house window when they came and said, "We're in Britain, we're going to be British." And he banned all the children from speaking Italian, which was such a shame. He kept a lot of the culture, but I love everything about Italy. I love exploring. I've been all, Sicily, Sardinia. I've been South Italy, Northern Italy, Middle Italy, the heel of Italy. I've done the lot. Yeah.
Wow. So you are the Italian go-to expert. Was there a particular pasta type from that village that you know of? Because I know a lot of Italy have very specific pastas in their regions of how they're created.
They have not only different pastas, but they have different shaped pastas depending on the regions. So I have been on cookery lessons in different regions and learn their local, the way they make it. But most Italians buy dry pasta. They don't.
No,
Yes, they do. Most
no.
Italians, because they make it, they manufacture it in huge, huge factories there. So their go-to is to buy. They won't always make it from scratch. Sometimes they'll make their own tagliatelle, but most of the time they will just go and buy dried pasta. And actually, I struggle to eat pasta now because I grew up on it as a child. I hate spaghetti with a passion. If anyone puts lasagna or spaghetti bolognese in front of me, I'm like, I just can't face it because as a child, that's all my mum could cook. She couldn't cook anything else, so we lived on it.
So what would be your go-to food in Italy now then?
My go-to food, don't get me wrong, I love a really beautiful spinach and ricotta ravioli, if it's done
Mm.
right with a beautiful sauce. But I love the salads. I just love the spices they use. I went to Sicily, and we learned how to make scaccia, which is folded pastry with different layers and different foods inside. Nothing like a lasagna. Cannoli is my all-time favorite dessert. I'm not a fan of tiramisu, which everyone thinks is the Italian dessert, but no. And yeah, different regions. Some reason I can't eat pizza.
I love that this is all coming out because actually I'm British. Well, actually, technically, I'm Irish, but I've lived in the UK all my life, and we grew up on literally like meat and veg, and I'm vegetarian now for probably the same reason.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to make a pasta, I'll make something, with an unusual shape pasta. I love unusual shapes. And I'll make something with an arrabbiata sauce or something like that. Something that's got a bit of a kick. I love a bit of a kick in my dishes. But yeah, when I go there, I just explore the food of where I am.
Oh, I really enjoy that. I think that's such a beautiful connection with that country as well. And I mean, I love it. I think it's a beautiful place to be. And I just love the culture there. It's just, I mean, without kind of romanticizing about it, it does feel like you go there and get a massive hug for me. That's what I feel like every time I go there.
Yeah,
Um,
it's the culture as well. It's the family
mm,
feeding, the everything's relaxed. Everything's so relaxed.
yeah, which is exactly what sometimes we all need. I'm going to go a little bit more into talking a bit about around your business now, but you've built a business around helping people be seen and heard. But
Yeah,
where in your own life did you feel like you were maybe being unseen and not heard?
gosh.
If
Probably.
at all.
Well, no, I suppose in my school years, my secondary school years, I felt invisible because we were taught to dress the same, sound the same, look the same. And I think I lost my identity. And I gained that back when I left school and went into the world of work. Again, I lost my identity when I was married, came out of my marriage, didn't know who I was or what I was doing, and had to rediscover my identity again. And I think, again, when I was in the corporate world, I became a number, not a person, which is why I left the corporate world and set up my own law practice. And then I just no longer loved what I did. When I get stuck behind a desk and can't see people and can't interact with people and can't make a difference with people, then I become very introverted and very insular. And I think then I lose my passion for what I'm doing. So I thrive off other people doing well. I thrive off giving opportunities to other people to be in the spotlight. Um, And that's not to say I won't put myself in the spotlight, but I'm a big believer. If you lead by example, you can't beat what you can't see. So if I share something and my audience sit there and think, oh, that's me. If she can do it, I can do it. Job done.
Yeah, I, I, I absolutely love that. And I think you are so inspirational to so many people that even just small words of encouragement can make such a big difference. Has there been someone in your life where you found that they've kind of given you that kind of either that from the wrong place or the right place, kind of giving you that kind of determination to really go for it and just change everything and make sure that you really succeed at this?
I think indirectly, my mom, she told me when I was a child that I could be anything I wanted to be. And I really believed her. But I've always had that at the root. She fought for everything, being Italian during the war days. She was spat on in the street. Her dad and brothers were interned during the war before Italy switched sides. So she lived they had to fight for everything. And she instilled that in me as a child. So I think I've just got that determination within me that if I want to do something, I'll make it happen.
Yeah, I can see that in everything you do, and certainly from reading all about your career and what you've come from. And actually, I know you mentioned on your website, you even though your accidental brand, as you've called it, is called Woman Who, but you do actually do work with some men, I believe. Is that true?
Yeah, I do, and it's a shame really that more men don't say that they work with me or not because they almost feel, oh yeah, I'll work with you, but yeah, we'll just keep it between us, or they don't want to be. And I've got so many men in my world that I've worked with. My photographer I've worked with for 8 years. I've got people, some of my judges. Got one of my judges for my awards that's been with me for 11 years. That's fantastic. And he's quite happy to say that. And so I've got men in my team, as it were, and those things. But yeah, they're just quietly in the background. They don't want the center stage. They're quite happy doing what they're doing. Yeah.
Oh, it's so interesting. But what, in a way, what kind of do you think? I know, obviously, other than the brand called Woman Who, but what do you think is it that women are drawn to you when you've actually worked in quite traditionally male roles and male environments?
I think it's because I've always broken the rules. In a good way. So when I set up my solicitors practice, all the solicitors at the time had been going for over 100 years, and they all said, "Oh, you won't last 3 months." They were all branded traditional blue, trustworthy blue, and very corporate sounding. Whereas I opened up, and instantly my brand colors were red, and we put our photos on the website, which was unheard of back in the day, and we put personal things on, like pictures of us with dogs and doing our hobbies, and people were gravitating towards that at the time because it was so different. And I think I am an innovator. I like to do things differently, stripping award categories away from my awards, so there are no categories. And people say, "But how can you do that?" Well, we do. I do. So
Yeah.
I am a disruptor. I'm an innovator. I like to challenge the norm and show there's another way.
What's been your favorite rule to break? What have you really enjoyed going against the grain on?
Oh God, now you've put me on the spot. I don't know. I can't say. I think I enjoyed taking the categories away from the awards. I mean, so many people
Mm,
have copied my awards, which is, I take that as a compliment. But taking the categories away, I haven't seen anybody else do that yet. And I did it 3 years ago. And nobody really understands how I've done it or how I can do it. But I have, and it works, and it just makes everyone feel special. And that's always been my thing, along with, why not have everybody up on the stage during an awards process? Why has it got to be only the winners? And other people are doing that now, which is great to see. So I don't see other people as competition. I see them as collaborators. I learn from them, they learn from me.
yeah, that's such a. I love that you've taken away the categories because we're almost conditioned to fit into boxes so many times, and the fact that you've just taken that away,
Yeah,
just
no one should have to shoehorn themselves into being what, and probably I am a rule breaker there. If I remember as a school child walking down the hill to the local fire station and saying I wanted to be a firewoman, and they turned around to me and said, "You can't because you're female."
no.
And at the time, women couldn't be firemen. They are now. You get fire people. But at the time, I was way ahead in my years of being a disruptor for that because I
Yeah.
wanted a challenge. I wanted to challenge the norm.
Would you be a firefighter if you had the opportunity now?
I'm not fit enough.
Oh, I love it. I want to talk about the awards because I want to talk about how you kind of came up with starting them. What was it that kind of sparked you to think, I need to do these awards?
Right, this is me, my disruptor coming out again. I went to an awards. I'd entered lots of awards for my solicitor's practice, and I'd won awards, but most of the time you sit there and unless you're a winner, you don't go up on the stage and you get shut. You've got other time, they just put a brown envelope in front of you. Well, that always fills me with like, oh God, tax man or something. Brown envelope, and I looked at it and a whole table. You had to buy a table. All my clients with me. Winner announced, it wasn't me. Everyone says, oh, never mind, never mind. Then you get this brown envelope and you open it and it's a certificate. Okay, that's all you did. And then I'd look at the stage and it was a line of penguin suits, all male. And I just felt, why aren't women being seen? And I went up to one awards person when the same happened. It was all penguin suits, no brown envelope. And I just sat there, I'd taken clients and I went up to him and said, what do women have to do to get on that stage? He says, you have to impress us.
No way.
Yeah, and he said none of the women have impressed us. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to do something about this. And that's when I decided. And if it hadn't, I'd got this project. It had been sitting there for about 10 years. But you know, when you can't jump off the hamster wheel and you need that safe income. And it wasn't, if I hadn't had the ankle break, Woman Who wouldn't have happened. And the reason I call it Woman Who is it's all about the individual woman and enabling her to be seen.
Oh, I love that. When you broke your ankle, because I've had an accident actually very much at the beginning of my very first business where it kind of just made me have to stop straight away. I'd literally been doing it for 6 months. No, it hadn't. It was 6 weeks, and I'd fallen off my bicycle, and like literally the wheels came off. What was it like in that moment after you slipped in the snow? What was going through your mind at that point?
I was lying on the hospital trolley. They'd just put my leg in plaster. They told me I was going down for surgery. And I was on my own. And I had my phone with me. And I thought, right, okay, what am I going to do? Because I'm going to be laid up for a few weeks. And right in that moment, I knew that project was the one to do. And I thought, okay, in 90 days' time, I'm going to run an event. I didn't know what the event was going to be, but I thought I'm going to run an event. And I thought, I know, I'll build a website and do an awards. And it was just to occupy me. And I just said to my son when I saw him, would he come and help on the day? I was on crutches in a boot.
I love it.
It was a one-off project. It was never meant to be a business. And the people that came at the time, there was nothing like it locally. There was nothing like it out there. And at the time, the Federation of Small Businesses approached me. We needed to sit on our task force. When other people were approaching me, we want to be a part of this. And it just grew legs, literally.
Wow. I love how you've taken that moment where for some people that would have been like a real difficult time to kind of like have to deal with that, not only like the recovery process but the pain and the inability to do things, but you've actually taken it and kind of gone, okay, I'm going to do something much bigger than what I'm doing sitting here. I
Yeah.
just think that's just brilliant.
Do you know what? It only came to me the other day, but I think that's because of my parents. Because I remember as a child, my dad breaking his ankle. And I remember my mum breaking her foot. And I remember them both being in plaster, but they were still doing things. My dad was still out digging the garden. My mum was still collecting us. They didn't stop just because they'd broken a limb. Ironically, I've broken all the same bones as my dad, but um,
Is that maybe it's hereditary? That's really
I think it is. We're just a clumsy family. My mum was always falling over. My dad was always falling over, and I do the same. So yeah, we're just dyspraxic, I think.
have there been over the last 10 years since that kind of moment, have there been any moments or, that have really stood out for you that has kind of really stuck in your mind?
I mean, obviously getting the MBE, that was a standout moment. But it also came with sadness because at the same time I got my MBE, my dad was terminally ill and passed away. So,
Oh,
but I was able to tell him before he passed away, so he got to see that. He didn't get to see me go to the palace, but he got to see that moment. And I think there's other moments where I've stood in the room at my awards and I see the impact it has on the when you see someone walk into the stage, nobody knows until the day. Everyone thinks winners get teed up in advance and they get, advance notice. They don't. And to see some, even the people that aren't winners, but when they're coming up to the stage, that sense of pride and achievement. And when I see that, I feel like this surge of energy and I feel incredibly proud. I say, and when I see my speakers on stage and I'm in the audience, I think, I'm a proud mum. I've given birth to that speaker. It's almost like that, really is.
That energy is so incredibly powerful. And I see that from having worked behind the scenes and certainly doing the big festoon behind the scenes because I help out with the speakers.
Yeah.
There is nothing like that energy when they come off that stage after having done something which has put them well out their comfort zone. And it's like they are on floating on air. It's just incredible. And I'm when people come off, sometimes they all have different reactions, but I understand that. I mean, I haven't done anything other than get them on the stage at the right time and make sure they've got all the things
Yeah.
they need. But that energy is just, I can feel it. So I can only imagine that's just a margin of how you must feel when you're seeing the people that you've trained like blossom on in a way that they probably some of them never felt capable of doing.
It is, and I create opportunities. If people aren't up to speaking, I'll create a different opportunity for them, whether they want to host or be a podcast host or something. But they get a go, they get a chance, and if they fluff it up, it doesn't matter. There's always another day. But I'm there to lift them up. And most of them, when they come off stage, they feel like they can fly.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so true, actually, because I want to talk a little bit, just very briefly, before we come to the end of this episode, about like perfectionism and how so many people feel that they have to be perfect when they walk on stage. And I will tell you this from experience, I have never been perfect on stage, not once. I have played for years and I've also spoken on stage for years. And very rarely do I get everything right as I imagined it. And most musicians feel like that as well, because they always come off and the first thing they think of, I could have done that better most of the time. So it's a really interesting thing that people worry about getting tongue tied or missing a slide or kept going wrong. But like you say, that really doesn't matter to the audience that are sitting there, does it?
I've never sat in an audience and I've never heard of an audience member that wants a speaker to fail.
Mm.
Everybody's behind you. And I think too perfect, too polished, it looks too polished and too perfect. If somebody spouts off a speech and doesn't, this is why I say it's all about the audience. If somebody's talking and you feel as if they're not connecting with you, they've lost the audience. And sometimes when you're too polished, you lose the audience. And I think if you can show your imperfections, I've had people stand on my stage and go, oh my God, I forgot what I was going to say, menopause brain. And everyone's with them saying, don't worry, don't worry. And they've turned it into something, it's real, or they get emotional. I've taught them techniques how to deal with that. The audience are with you and they're hanging off your every word. And that's, they want those imperfections. They don't want it to be too polished.
Oh, you couldn't have summed it up better if I tried. But this is also so relevant for putting into content online as well as offline. Like we always strive for perfectionism in that, but actually no one really cares. They want to see the real version. And I think that's so important because that's what really builds the connection.
Yeah.
One final question from me. What piece of advice for helping people to step into the spotlight would you give?
Take the first step. The first step is always the hardest one to take. And it doesn't have to be a huge step, but whatever's right for you. So sometimes that step might just be speaking on a podcast, or it might be chatting with somebody on a panel, or it might just be speaking in a small networking, where you get to do a 60-second or something. Take the first step because nobody's there to knock you down. Everyone wants to encourage you and to lift you up. So yeah, that first step is always the hardest, but once you've done it once, as with the singing that I did, once you've done it once, you can do it and you can always improve on it.
So true. Sandra, it has been such a delight to talk to you. I could talk to you for hours because, and we might have to do a part two of this at some point, but where can people find you?
Everything that I do is on my website with all my social connections as well. And that's woman who, not women, womanwho.co.uk. I'm also on LinkedIn, Sandra Garlick, and on Instagram, Sandra Garlick MBE.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I'll be back again next week with another episode of Stories That Sell.